Hi everyone, today we are going to do some tips for first-time cruisers. And maybe a couple tips in there even if you are a seasoned veteran cruiser. Let's go talk about it. Hello everyone, John here from Bite Size Cruises. Welcome back to the channel. We are just a travel agency. We're trying to compile all of the best cruise tips and tricks, behind the scenes access, and all of those little things you need to know about cruising so that you can plan and go on an amazing cruise vacation. Today, that's especially true. We're going to talk about tips for first-time cruisers. There are some little nuggets of wisdom in here, even if you have been on a lot of cruises. Remember, cruising is very addictive. So once you go on a cruise and you get into that cruise life, you are really going to embrace it and start building up your cruise portfolio. So as a travel advisor, I have been on around 65 cruises, not as many as some people, but a lot of cruising nonetheless. And these are just some tips that I've accumulated along the way. Just want to get them out to you so that you know what you're up against and know what to really expect and how to make this the best trip possible. Cruising is very different than land vacations. Just like Disney's way different than going to Europe. So it's good to know all of these little tips and tricks, and feel free to use as many as these are helpful for you. First bit of cruise advice I have for you before you book your first cruise or before you book your 100th cruise. Call a travel advisor. As a travel advisor, I am not only required, but I'm super passionate about cruising. I specialize in cruise vacations. So when you call me, I'm going to talk to you about all of the different cruise lines. I'm also required to get education on the different cruise lines and to keep up to speed and keep up to date on things. And I'm constantly in communication with all of the different cruise lines, the different air travel providers, all of the different things that encompass going on a cruise. So by calling a travel advisor, you're going to knock out a few things. One, you may not be completely sure what cruise ship or cruise line that you really want to go on. One of the things I hear all the time is I'll have somebody call me and say, hey, I'd like to book X, whether it's a Royal Caribbean cruise or a Norwegian cruise or a Holland American cruise, whatever it is. And one of the first questions I always ask is, do you know a lot about that cruise line? Do you know a lot about that ship? And most of the time they'll say, I saw an ad or I saw a commercial, I watched a video. So I dig into it a little more. Do you have any kids? How old are you guys? Just a basic frame. You don't have to give me your exact age, just your little demographics, so I know kind of where you like to slot in. What do you like to do on vacation? What things are you interested in? Do you love food? Are you into wine? Do you like adventure? Are you more into relaxation? So that's going to help me kind of give you feedback on what I think might be the best cruise vacation for you. Remember, when you call a travel advisor, there is and should be no additional cost to work with them. It doesn't cost you a penny more. They're going to really advise you and give you all of this help at no cost. We get reimbursed by the cruise line. We get a certain percentage back from them as a commission for booking you. Again, most of them are all the same, so there's no big incentive for me to push you on a specific cruise or a cruise line. To me, it's about you having the best experience so that you continue to come back and use us over and over and over again, and you really fall in love with this cruise life that we all love so much. Next bit of tips for you is to stay on the ship's time. This is going to be vitally important. You're going to hear about it a lot, and people make this mistake all the time. When you go on a cruise, a lot of times if you're leaving out of Miami, or I leave out of New York sometimes, you may be going to Bermuda or St. Thomas, St. Martin, Dominican Republic, Cuba. You might be going anywhere. A lot of those things might not be in the same time zone as you. If you're on the East Coast and you're heading over to Bermuda, or you're in the East Coast and you're heading to Haiti or any of those, you're going to be going forward or backwards, maybe multiple times over the course of your cruise, depending on what the ship decides to do. But when you get off the ship, you're going to be required to get back to the ship at a specific time. That is not always local time, and it doesn't really matter what local time is. What matters is what time it is on the ship. So the ship time may be different than local time. So what you want to do is I always make sure of two things. One, I set an alert on my phone to know when I need to be back on the ship, and I set it like several hours ahead of time, and I do a alarm in the amount of time that I know I need to be back. So not like, don't set an alarm for 5:30 because your thing may change. So I do set a calendar reminder as well because that'll stay on the time. And then the other thing I do is I always make sure that I have the cruise ship app. The cruise ship app always has the correct ship's time on it. And again, it's just kind of like due diligence of staying ahead of the curve there. It's confusing for everyone, and you can figure it out pretty safely if you just keep that app on your phone, keep track of the time, and you will be good to go. Number 3 tip is be really careful with your excursions. There are a ton of options. You can certainly book excursions through the cruise line. What you will see is there is that guarantee that we will get you back to the ship. Even that doesn't mean that you won't miss the ship because sometimes things just happen, right? You might be on an excursion, the cruise line is driving back and you run into something, there's an accident on the road. You may not get back, but they're responsible to get you to the next port. So that's generally a good rule of thumb on your first time cruising. Otherwise, again, this is a great reminder of why to use a travel advisor or to talk to a travel advisor, is they're going to kind of give you some guidance on that. I use Viator a lot. The reason I use Viator is 1, they're very, very, very reputable. 2, even though they don't have that get you back to the ship guarantee, a lot of the excursions are the same exact excursions. And what you'll find is Viator and even some other companies that are very reputable have smaller groups. If you go on the cruise line group, sometimes it's 30 or 40 people. Viator might be 10 to 12 people. So talk to a travel advisor, get some best advice. But again, for your first cruise, if you're feeling a little anxious about it, always book through the cruise line. That'll be your kind of safest route to go. And then again, just do a lot of research on different ports. You do have to be careful. You have to be careful everywhere you go, even when you're home. You know the best areas by where your home is. So when you're out, do a little research, make sure you're very comfortable and familiar, and follow best practices for being safe out in all of the different ports. So your next tip is be really wary of nickel and diming. While I love cruising and there are some more all-inclusive cruise environments, there is still a lot of nickel and diming, and it gets more and more all the time. It doesn't mean that it's not a good value or that you're not going on this amazing vacation for a good budget. It just means that the cruise lines have now broken out some things that aren't included in your cruise fare, which gives them the ability to make more money, which is fine. You can feel however you want about that. I just want you to be careful that those things do happen and you do need to be aware of it. So remember, there are a lot of food items and beverage items that are included in your cruise fare, but there is some specialty dining. There are drink packages. There are gratuities that are not always included that you have to pay daily, or you can pay them ahead of time. There are, unlimited options like bingo, like excursions, internet, all of those different things. So do your research. Again, you could use a travel advisor. You can do research on YouTube like you're doing now, or use Google and really research things, but do be wary of those things that are not included in your cruise fare because they can add up, and it's really better to be informed ahead of time so that you could set your budget and feel really good about this cruise vacation. Next tip is be timely, and I'm going to talk about this in several different ways. So the one big tip that everyone should know is you should always get to your port the day ahead of time if you're flying. If you are driving, of course you do have some flexibility. I live very close to Bayonne. I live very close, which is Cape Liberty. I live close enough to New York. I live close enough to Baltimore that generally I would drive or take the train to those cruise ports the day of. I will leave early and get there early. I'd rather go out to breakfast and do something else. I'm not like a leave at 10 o'clock in the morning for a 12 o'clock check-in when I know it takes me an hour and some to get there. Traffic happens, accidents happen, all different things. When you are flying, you never know what's going to happen. Flights get canceled, they get delayed for any number of reasons. So just be careful on that. Try to get there a day ahead of time. Yes, it does affect your budget. You're going to have to get a hotel, but it's way better to spend that $200, $250 to get a hotel than it is to get there the day of and to miss your cruise entirely. The other reasons to be timely are, one of the things you'll find out as you really dig into this cruise life is getting there just a little bit early is better than getting there late. So whether that's for embarkation, whether that is for showing up for a show, if you're going to one of the shows in the theaters, an aqua theater, ice skating, you will find that the sweet spot is like 15 to 30 minutes before the show to get there. Now, there are some shows that are crazy. You have to wait in line for a long time. Those are nuts. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about just your standard production show, your standard ice skating, aqua theater show. You're going to have your best choice of seats 15 to 30 minutes before. If you show up 5 to 10 minutes before, yes, you're going to be fine. You're just going to be kind of not being able to choose exactly where you want to sit. You're going to have to just smush in wherever you're going to have to smush in. So just a little tip. And again, for everything, be a few minutes ahead of time. You are going to win out if you are early rather than late, especially getting back on the ship, those type of things. So be early. Next one that we have is, this is kind of like a pro tip for once you really get into cruising. Spend one of your port days on board the ship. To me, it's one of my favorite things to do as a seasoned cruiser is everyone's going to get off the ship. If you stay back on the ship, the pools are going to be empty. The buffet's not going to be as crowded. The water slides will be better. All of those things are great. Now, you don't have to do that at every port, and you certainly don't have to do that. It's just a little bit of a pro tip. If you are going to a port maybe that you've been to before, maybe you've flown into or did a land vacation in the Bahamas or somewhere else, stay on the ship and you will see it's so great when everyone gets off. Everything is quiet and super available. Next up, let's go back to doing things early or being early. One of my favorite tips to give people is if there are things that you feel like you must do on your cruise, do them as soon as possible. I know it's going to sound hectic and you're going to get on the ship and you're going to be trying to figure things out and do all the different things. My one big piece of advice is always, if there's a show that you want to see and they show it multiple times, go see it the first time, because sometimes things get canceled. And this has happened to me a bunch of times, and it's why I've learned this lesson. I'll give you a great story. Once we were on Norwegian Escape last year. I love the Choir of Man show. It's one of my favorite shows on NCL. They have it on Escape and they have it on Encore. We saw it on Encore on Escape a few years ago. We went on Escape last year. We were super excited. We scheduled it for the last sea day. It was like our big, right at the end of the cruise, we're going to see it. It's going to be a great way to end our cruise, and it got canceled. And there were other showings of it beforehand. There were 2 or 3 other shows. So if we had booked those ahead of time, either we would have seen that, or maybe we've been able to, jump in on one of the other ones. But alas, we had to miss it. So if there are things you want to do, like the water slides, generally my theory on all of this is you will see this with specialty dining, shows, bars, different things. People kind of catch up along the way of a cruise. I'm spoiled sometimes where I've been on all these ships. A lot of times I know exactly when things are, where they are. I do a lot of research, so I always know things ahead of time. And just from working with the cruise lines and all these people. So when I get on a cruise ship, it's kind of like, okay, I have an agenda. I'm going to book my specialty dining. I'm going to do these restaurants on certain days. What I always find is the first couple nights of your cruise, I don't see as many people at specialty dining. I don't see as many people at shows. I don't see as many people at bars or doing the water slides. And then as you get through your week or however many days your cruise is, things start getting more and more crowded because people start figuring out, oh, I never went to this side of the ship, or I never did here. Now, how many times I've heard, like, on day 6, there's a water slide, or there's this, I didn't even know this was here. And then those things start to get crowded. So if there's something you want to do, knock it out early. You can always relax or go do things again that you would love to do. Just a tip there to try to knock things out early. My next tip is anything that you know you are going to do. If you're going to book an excursion, if you're going to book the drink package, the Wi-Fi, any of those things, book them before you get on the ship. They are never cheaper once you get on the ship. Things keep getting more expensive the closer you get to your cruise. Now, there are sales and different things that pop up pre-cruise, but you can always book those things. You can always cancel them and rebook them. You'll get your money back. You can rebook the drink package. You could rebook anything. Generally, for most cruise lines, the prices don't change on those things. For Royal Caribbean, they do have slide pricing and sales. So for those, you want to kind of keep an eye on it. But always, the default is book it as soon as you can so that you get the best price and you can always cancel and rebook. Next up is a packing tip. Now, I am a very light packer. I am not going to suggest that you pack as light as I do. But my one suggestion for packing is you never need as much as you think you do. You are going on a cruise. Now, again, it's going to depend where you're going. If you're going to Alaska, you're going to need heavier clothes. If you're going to the Mediterranean and you're going out to different places and doing different things, you might need different clothes. If you enjoy dressing up, you might want to get dressed up for your gala night and those things. So by no means do you have to pack super light, but I would recommend that you have some mix and match outfits for things you can wear at day and night. And what I think you're going to find is most of the time you're going to be wearing the same kind of resort casual clothes most of the time. So other than obviously your bathing suits or different things like that. But I always find that you don't need as much as you think you do. My sister was going on a cruise a few months ago and she was taking like 7 bathing suits. And I'm like, you don't need, you need 2 or 3. No one's going to know that you're wearing the same bathing suit again. And they do dry and all those other things. So you don't need as much as you think you do, but please feel free to pack as much as you want. It's your own choice and enjoy your cruise the way you want to. My other recommendation for packing is your day of bag. Bring a carry-on bag that has a bathing suit in it, maybe a quick change of clothes in case your luggage doesn't get there as soon as you would like it to get there. Sometimes you don't get your luggage until early in the evening. It's rare, but it does happen, and you may have early dinner, so make sure you just have something in there that you could pop on if you're not comfortable in the same clothes you've been in all day. And then obviously my other packing tip is remember the rooms are magnetic, so most of the rooms are metal, and you can hang things up. So you could bring hooks or you could bring little clips that you could put paper because you don't have a lot of counter space or table space in the room, and that may help you free up some of that space. And then last but not least, my other tip is if you do have children, make sure you get them to the kids club areas and register them on day 1. So that they can get a tour, they can meet the people. Even if you're not going to utilize it all the time, it's really good to get them in there the first day so that you're guaranteed that spot and see if they like it and let them get their orientation and everything done. Those are our tips for first-time cruisers, and maybe a couple things in there you didn't know if you've been on a bunch of cruises. Please let us know if you have any additional tips or if you have any questions. We would love for you to like this video if you found it helpful. Please subscribe to our channel. We would love for you to be part of our community here. Put out a brand new video on cruising every single day. Thanks everyone. Happy cruising, and we'll see you tomorrow.